Now, philosophers are people who we have quite a disconnection from. They're always from like old times, they're from old books, they're usually people with beards, usually people wearing suits or wearing togas. But I'm going to connect philosophers and one of my favourite games, Witcher 3. Now, putting aesthetics and vibes aside, philosophy is a very cultivating and a very worthwhile pursuit where we get to understand ourselves and understand the world through other people's lenses, and then eventually we can, analyse them with our own mind. And basically, I'm going to apply 3 ethical theories, that being Jeremy Bentham's utilitarianism. We're going to use St. Thomas Aquinas' natural moral law, and what was the last one? We're going to use Immanuel Kant's Kantian ethics. So Kantian ethics, it is a duty-based theory, and basically there's a certain universal fixed moral laws in the universe, and us as a moral agent, we use our reason and goodwill, and we abide to those, all whilst doing it in a sense of duty. So next up, we have St. Thomas Aquinas with natural moral law. Aquinas being a monk, a priest, Italian, around the 13th century. He wrote works such as Summa Theologica, which is one of the most influential theological books of all time. And natural moral law posits that there's a thing called synderesis, which means basically do good and avoid evil. And by aligning our nature with God's design, we can reach telos and eventually the sonum bonum and the beatific vision, basically. It all ties into theology. So now we're on Jeremy Bentham. He is a utilitarian philosopher and ethicist. So utilitarianism basically summed up the greatest good for the greatest number, or in his case, it would be more pleasure, the greatest pleasure for the greatest number. And the hedonic calculus, which is how you calculate the actual morality or outcome of the situation. The main thing that separates Bentham from the other philosophers I just mentioned is that it's teleological. Now, if you played The Witcher before, you'll know that The Witcher 3 is based on a lot of choices. Everything is a choice. There's so many different choices. But today we're just going to hone in on the most important, the most deciding ones, and the most fun ones, so we can actually see the philosophy being put into practice. Now, from the onset of The Witcher 3, we know that actions do have consequences. For example, the first time we see this is in White Orchard, with the blacksmith and the human. Long story short, the man goes on a drunken rage, sets the forge on fire, probably says something racist to the dwarf, and then promptly blames his own problems on the dwarf. Now, you can either snitch or let him go, but it's not actually obvious that he'll actually hang him for his misdeeds. Now, the first example we're actually going to use is in Velen, where you go to the inn at the crossroads, and then you meet the Baron's men. So Geralt's in the inn to look for Hendrik, to find information on Ciri, to go to Heatherton. Basically, you have the option to go your own way, or to fight them. Now, this is an easy first one. All the philosophers would not kill these people. Now, Aquinas has something called the primary precepts, and they're basically 5 foundational and self-evident principles, which are derived from the basic directive to do good and avoid evil. And these are: preserve human life, reproduce, educate the young, live in ordered society, and finally, worship God. Now, obviously, this goes against the preservation of human life. Now, Aquinas is not just black and white on this. He does get more nuanced, because he has something called the doctrine of double effect, which we will go over later. This is a clear and cut one. He wouldn't kill them. Now, let's apply Bentham. Now, if you remember, the principle of utility is the greatest good for the greatest number. And obviously, killing these people would bring displeasure to people around them. It would obviously end their life, which is a bad thing. And Geralt would have a worse reputation probably around. So, overall, on the hedonic calculus, it would be a lower score. Therefore, Bentham wouldn't kill these people. Now, Kant obviously wouldn't kill these people, but digging deep into the categorical imperative, he has 3 formulations. Second one being formula of ends, formula of humans, humanity, whatever. And it says, I quote, act in such a way that you treat humanity, whether in your own person or in the person of any other, never merely as a means to an end, but always at the same time as an end. He basically says that every person has a value and a rational agency, and we shouldn't exploit that. Killing them would obviously end that, so he wouldn't kill them.
Heard you wondering about my swords. Well, one's for monsters, the other for humans. Only got 1 prick, though, in case you're wondering about that, too.
Don't touch him. Don't even look at him. Worse than lepers, that lot. Saw one in action once. Killed a half dozen. Blood everywhere. Freak didn't even show a drop of sweat.
Got the stench of corpses on him.
Now we have a really tricky one, and it's going to be obviously the Bloody Baron quest line, which is, I think, it was voted like one of the greatest side quests or quest lines of all time. Geralt finds out the Baron through the book at Hendrik's house in Heatherton, and basically he finds him. Baron says, "Oh, do this for me. Find Anna, find Tamara, whatever." Obviously, Geralt finds his way to the Peller. The Peller tells Geralt that the Bloody Baron beats Anna, beats Tamara, and basically Geralt goes find him. He's drunken as a swine, and he finds out the real truth, that she miscarried. And obviously the miscarried fetus is a botchling, which is a creature that feeds upon pregnant women. And Geralt has the choice either to save the botchling, not kill it, and let it guide it to the spirits to see where Anna and Tamara are, basically, or to kill it, use the blood for a ritual that Pella will then use to find Tamara and Anna. Now, Aquinas, being a Catholic, obviously he would be against any sort of necromancy, any sort of communication with the dead. So Aquinas writes in Summa Theologica, when demons are invoked, they want to foretell the future in many ways. Sometimes they employ apparitions or utterances of the dead, and this is the species called necromancy. So I actually think Aquinas would attack the botchling. This is because, he thinks he's dispelling evil, he's fighting off a demon probably, something like that. But really cooperating and lifting the curse is actually probably the moral choice. Now let's zoom in on Kant for a bit. I think Kant would actually lift the curse on the botchling. This is because, he's all about duty, he's about goodwill. One of the postulates, one of the formulas is that basically the formula of universalization. So you have a moral situation, you have an outcome and you want to do the outcome, you want to do the moral action, and you think if everyone were to do this moral action, would it be a better world? Would it be a good world? And in this situation, lifting the curse is probably better than killing it. Perhaps when you kill it, you have a chance of death, of hurting yourself, perhaps hurting the Baron. So using this universalization, Kant would probably lift the curse. Now, Jeremy Bentham. What would Bentham do? So we would use the principle of utility, the greatest good for the greatest number. We're going to apply it to the situation. Now, if Geralt were to lift the curse, it would probably be easier for Geralt. He doesn't have to fight. The Bloody Baron actually tells you that he doesn't want to hurt the baby anymore. And if you were to tell Tamara and Anna, they'd probably prefer alleviation of pain rather than a torment.
What now? Repeat after me. By the powers of earth and sky.
By the powers of earth and sky.
By the world that was to be your home.
By the world that was to be your home.
Forgive me, you who came, but who I did not embrace.
Forgive me, you who came, but who I did not embrace.
I name thee, say her name, and embrace thee as my daughter.
I name thee, Daya, and embrace thee as my daughter.
Now we're moving on to the Whispering Hillock. So to recap what happens, Geralt is ushered by the Ladies of the Wood to go to the Whispering Hillock because the ladies say, oh, it's killing people, it's evil, we can't get a harvest, which turns out later to be like children. And when he talks to the spirit in the tree, Geralt has two decisions, either to kill it or to let it free. Now, if you let the spirit free, initially it's a bit of a slap on the wrist by the crones, but then later on, Anna turns into a warthog, and then later on when you go back to the village is slaughtered. Whereas if you kill it, then obviously, you're glazed by the witches. The Bloody Baron lives, Anna lives, but they go on to find healing. Now this situation could be used classically for a critique of utilitarianism, since the guiding principle of utilitarianism is the greatest good for the greatest number, greatest amount of pleasure for the greatest number, especially for Bentham. The crones getting the pleasure from this, and you not knowing the actual outcome at the time, because this is what we're framing it as now. In this light, you could argue the crones are getting an immense amount of pleasure compared to the children's death. It's arguable. Doesn't mean it's right. Now, this highlights a big weakness in utilitarianism, obviously being human rights. John Stuart Mill, this is exactly what he wanted to address with rule utilitarianism. Instead of using hedonic calculus and emphasizing pleasure, Mill distinguished higher and lower pleasures and also utilized rules within his moral framework. Now, I think Bentham would let the spirit go purely because at its face, at its precipice, it doesn't seem to cause any harm. Though the player learns later that actually does cause real life consequences later on in the game. And this is exactly another critique of utilitarianism, is that we cannot really know the future. We're not clairvoyant. Now, Aquinas, I think he would kill the creature. Because if you look at the quest, you see that there's bodies actually outside the hills and stuff. And Geralt that makes comments on those. And giving the Catholic view on like demonology, occultism, things like that. Obviously killing it would probably be at the main front of his mind. Though Aquinas obviously wouldn't foresee that the children would die, but his theory has something for that. It's called the doctrine of double effect. Basically the perfect representation of deontology. Basically, if you do an action and at the time your intention is moral and it's virtuous, but it leads to a bad outcome, then Aquinas would say that it is a moral action that just had a bad consequence, which isn't at fault at the moral agent here. Now, Immanuel Kant, I think he would also kill the Whispering Hillock. This is because Kant has a law of universalization, or the formulation of universalization. And basically, in this situation, it would be, would you want everybody in the world to either let this tree out, let the spirit of the tree out, or to kill it? And comparing the two, I think Kant would rather kill it. Because letting it go, obviously, the peasants tell you that it's dangerous. They don't trust it, and they'd much rather have the lady's protection. So using this, Kant would probably let the creature free. No, it would kill it. Kant would kill the creature.
We shall forgive you this transgression, for you've done well. Your children are plump as piglets, sweet as caramel.
But now we must talk to our white-haired friend.
The woman who cares for the kids.
She's a debt to pay. She is here by choice.
She's insane.
She knew what our pact entailed when she made it. We helped her. She promised to serve. Now she bears our mark. Belongs to us. Come. It is another woman who interests you. Speak, white-haired one.
So now moving on to Novigrad, which is, in my opinion, kind of an overrated part of the game. It's a bit slow. I know that's a bit unpopular, but there you go. And the first small but kind of major also for Geralt's character is Triss going into the witch hunter's barrack to get tortured for information. And then Geralt finds his way to sweet talk to Menga to find out where Dandelion is so he can get the key, free him, and then get more information on Ciri. Now throughout the entire quest, Geralt is constantly given chances to stop the actual mission. Now this is a clear-cut one for Bentham. The outcome of it is to find information on Ciri, which is overall more important, more pleasurable, and more fulfillment to Geralt and to Triss, as Triss gives actual consent that she wants to do this, which is probably a big, development of a character if you read the books about the enchanted potion or whatever. Now to be clear, I think Bentham would actually kill Menga just because you get the key, you get Dijkstra's support and some extra coin on top of it. So overall, that's bringing more pleasure and less pain if you think about it, because then Menga wouldn't be in Novigrad, doing those burnings of halflings, non-humans, and obviously the mages. Now, like Bentham, I think Aquinas would let Triss be tortured, but he wouldn't kill Menga. This is because you see there's a lot of cathartic themes in the Bible, a lot of self-sacrificial things, pick up your cross and follow me, as it says in Luke, things of this nature. So that the suffering that Triss will go through and Geralt would go through would lead to them finding Ciri, which is obviously good for building family units, which is something that Aquinas emphasizes. Also, you wouldn't kill Menga because that goes against the primary precept of preservation of life, so obviously he wouldn't do that. Moving swiftly on, Kant, this is also much more of an easier one than Aquinas. He wouldn't let Triss get tortured, and he wouldn't kill Menga. This is, of course, the other formulation of ends, human as ends, humans as a means for the ends, not the ends themselves. Now, to put it in normal human terms, he doesn't want Triss to be tortured because the suffering brings about a moral outcome. But the fact that there is torture involved in it doesn't make it a moral outcome or a moral action. So he wouldn't do that, and then obviously that means he doesn't have the chance to kill Menga.
You say where Dandelion is?
Yes, but
Now it's the peak of the Novigrad arc. Now it's the fate of Horson Jr. Now, to give context behind this, if you don't know, you should know. Ciri, Dandelion, and Dudu quite naively go to Horson Jr. because he has some sort of connections to mages, probably from Redania's prisons, fixed phylactery, basically, to lift the curse of Uma. Then Geralt gets information from Radovid where Horson is. He fights his way through the mansion. He sees the taking advantage of women.
Fucking degenerate.
Who are hanging, they're bloodied, they're killed. And then Geralt has a long chat with Horson Jr. And then after all of that, Geralt has the decision. Either A, you spare him, B, you kill him. Now let's think, for Bentham this is a no-brainer, right? Let's think. All that he does, he being obviously Horson Jr., is he spreads degeneracy, you know, for his prostitution, gambling, sex work, things of this nature. You see him in the apartment that he is in, the mansion he's in rather, and there's dead bodies hanging everywhere. He doesn't produce any pleasure or anything actual worthwhile for people. So, obviously, Bentham would kill him.
Can't let this go.
No.
Now for Aquinas, this is also very simple. He'd let him live. Obviously, it goes against the fifth primary precept, being the preservation of life. Now, arguably, letting him live is actually a worse fate, since he's prolongs his suffering and lets him actually think what he's done. So he may eventually have the chance to reform. That's maybe what Aquinas would say. I don't know about me though.
No! Little shit!
But now with Immanuel Kant, this is a little bit more nuanced than the others. Obviously, we know about treating humans as ends in themselves. Therefore, you would think that, you know, killing Horson would actually use them as an end. But within the context of the situation, you know, we see the bodies, we see the corpses, we know what Horson does. Using universalization, we'd think we'd want him gone. And that is exactly what Kant would do, I think. Another reason for this is the whole Kantian idea of duty being like the guiding thing in ethics. It's probably Geralt's duty to kill Horson on the behalf of Ciri. So that's what I think. So that's why I think Kant would kill Horson.
What? What do you want?
Hello, Junior. I've come to talk.
I'll do whatever you want.
Just out of curiosity, why do they call you Madman?
Yeah! That's why.
Skellige. Now we're at one of my favourite parts of the game. It's the most beautiful part of the game, and it's got a lot of good moral decisions for us to analyse philosophically, so we love that. So the first kind of real moral situation we have is obviously Ceres or Hjalmar. Who shall we crown? Who shall be king or queen? Now to give context, Geralt's invited to this feast by Crach on Crate. There's mead, there's wine, there's women. It's a very good, jolly old good time. Geralt goes into, you know, with the other room with Crach, and then there's like roars, and then Crach's like, oh, it's Hjalmar starting another roar again. And then Geralt's like, no, bro, those ain't no fucking, that's not a fight, bro. That's some bears. And then, you know, they go in and then bears stop fighting, and then they start killing people, etc. Now, after the bloody scene, the player is given a choice either to side with Ceres or Hjalmar to find who is responsible. Now, obviously, Hjalmar is dumb, Ceres is smart. Ceres is obviously a lot more grounded. Hjalmar is impulsive, he's stupid, and he's angry. I think resoundingly, both Bentham, Kant, and Aquinas would side with Ceres. The only reason why they wouldn't is because Ceres was a woman, and back then they were pretty sexist, so... So now we have one of my favourite parts of Skellige, and that is in the heart of the woods, which is a contract. It's some random contract. You know, Geralt goes to the board, sees there's people there. I think it's like the younger people, not the young people, but the younger people. And there's a contract. They're annoyed with some spirit that keeps killing their hunters or something like this. And Geralt talks to people, then he talks to the elder, and the elder says, actually, this spirit protects the village from outsiders, from the wolves, things like this, etc. And when Geralt goes through the motions, goes through the contract, then he has to make the decision to decide with the elder or the hunters, the young people. So now Immanuel Kant, I believe he would side with Sven, so like the younger guy, and then kill the Leshen, subsequently stopping the sacrifices. This is because the categorical imperative demands that we actually act on principles that we can universalize these human beings that have no consent about their situation, so that this tree spirit can protect us. For Kant, that's no brainer. Absolutely not. He's not doing that. And obviously, this treats people as a means to an end rather than the ends themselves. So even more reasons for Kant to not side with the elder and kill the Leshen. Obviously, Saint Thomas Aquinas, I think he would side with Sven, but more reluctantly than Kant, obviously. Now, Aquinas would apply the doctrine of double effect. So the intention is freeing the village from a demonic pact, because obviously he would interpret it as a demon, because, you know, he's Aquinas. But the act itself, killing the elders, in a just war context, it would be permissible, but it's not war, it's a village, and, you know. So think of this from Aquinas' perspective, okay? There's a tree spirit that demands blood sacrifice for the gain, for the earthly material gain of the village. Now this is like the epitome of like a demonic pact, basically. This is like the Crossroads type thing, you know, of like Guantry Dim, and also the Crossroads Robert Johnson song. What he'd want to do is back Sven and likely urge the elders to repent, but obviously this is The Witcher. Things don't work like that, but I feel like that's what he would do despite this. I mean, if you think about it, the monsters in The Witcher 3 are invasive. They're not of this world, so they're not a part of the natural order. They're not part of the natural order in biology, in the ecology, and then in the general sphere where people live as people. So we can infer from this they're not a part of the telos, they're not a part of this natural order, where Aquinas, he gets this from Aristotle, so it's very Aristotelian metaphysics. Now, Jeremy Bentham, obviously, he would use the principle of utility, greatest good for the greatest number, and hedonic calculus to really, like, maniacally and, like, coldly to calculate the situation. Howard's path, a few will be sacrificed each year. However, this means the entire village will thrive. Conceivably, there will be longer lifespans, better quality of life throughout the village, which in the Witcher world, this is a huge plus. And also, less harsh winters, and a net utility is high over generations, okay? So there'll be more pleasure, therefore the goodness of it will be larger. Now, Sven's path, elders are killed once, Leshens are dead, but the village loses its supernatural protection, which makes it more vulnerable and conceivably weaker throughout the years, because they'll be dwindled.
We've offended him, Sven. The woodland spirit seeks revenge. This here is him saying we've strayed from the old paths.
Offended him? The monster's killed 5 already. He doesn't give a rat's arse about paths or tracks or me or you. He's a ploughing beast from the ploughing forest.
Split his ribcage. A strong one, this spirit of yours.
That's so. And who might you be?
Geralt. I'm a witcher.
A killer for hire. What do you seek here?
Just passing through, looking for work.
This village is home to decent folk only. You won't find any work here.
Sure about that? Beast that did this, it's aggressive and incredibly strong. I can help you for a price.
I like this man. Ply your trade, Witcher. I believe we will agree terms.
Who or what is this woodland spirit?
Tell you what, it's not any of your concern.
It's a common beast. Murders any man who ventures into its territory.
Exhaustive as descriptions go. What does this spirit look like? Anyone seen it for themselves?
No man alive has.
Great. Really helpful, all of you. Birds pecked apart his entrails. And here, tooth marks. A large dog A wolf, maybe. This the way it always kills?
Only cowards. True warriors, men with the hearts of predators. The spirit grants them an honorable death.
You said the creature wants revenge. Why? For what?
Our forefathers hunted with spear and knife. This pleased the woodland spirit. He let us live in peace. We never knew hunger.
He killed back then too. He's always killed. How many lads died trying to become hunters? Now, since our hunters died in the war, the beast turned even more bloodthirsty.
We are ungreat. What others buy with gold, we buy with our lifeblood.
We are slaves to fear spread by blind fools like you. These woods are ours. High time we put an end to this beast.
I've heard enough. You've got a monster problem, that's clear. Just not sure you want it solved.
Oh, we do. Come see me. We'll figure us a fair price for the beast's head.
Our little talk while I looked over the corpse? Not nearly enough. Need to look around, figure out what I'm up against.
Okay, now we're getting to the crux of the game. We're getting to the creme de la creme. We're getting to the important decisions, and that's right, that is Ciri. That is Ciri's decisions. Geralt with Ciri. What would each philosopher do? Let's find out. Now, for most of the choices, I think the philosophers will pick the good ones, so that'll be the smaller ones. So, you know, letting Ciri talk to Philippa, doing the snowball fight, Ciri paying respect to Skjarl, Ciri venting her rage, things like that, etc., etc. They'll pick the good ones. But the one that's interesting is the Emperor's choice. Will Ciri go to see the Emperor or not? And what would the philosophers think about that? So for Kant, the categorical imperative means that you treat humans as ends and not ends to a mean. And this basically, the whole decision is on Ciri, what Ciri wants to do. If Ciri really doesn't want to be Empress, and however, it would probably be better for the world if Ciri was Empress, but she still doesn't want to, then Kant would conclude that it is immoral to usher Ciri into that direction. So treating Ciri as a political pawn to stabilize the empire would violate her dignity as a rational agent and Geralt's dignity as well as a rational agent. And his duty as kind of like a father figure as well would be in jeopardy. Now Aquinas, let's see what he do. So obviously Aquinas is a Catholic, and the Catholics have this view of the divine right of kings, that like kingship and monarchy is given down by God and through the generations, and this is a gift from God for them to govern, and it's therefore their responsibility whether they like it or not. And obviously Ciri, she is from a royal lineage, being from Pavetta, from Emir, and Geralt's adoption of her is arguably unnatural. This is not part of the telos. And in another view, the elder blood really makes her a powerful figure, and it ushers her even more to use this power for good. And through this, she'll show the cardinal virtues, you know, with, well, I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I'll put them on screen right now. And from this, she has the opportunity to reform an empire, because I think Nilfgaard, they do slavery. So, you know. Now, Bentham, he would be the strongest supporter for this. This is because, personal feelings aside from Ciri would probably reform, as I said, with Aquinas, would reform the way Nilfgaard works. It will be less imperialistic, less militaristic, less famine, less displacement, things like this, things of this nature. So therefore, using the hedonic calculus, as we've done many times throughout this video, her being Empress, rather than her being a Witcher, there is more pleasure and more goodness that arrives from her being the Empress, rather than her personal desire of being a Witcher, which brings a minor pleasure and a minor goodness that arrives from it.
Good luck, Ciri.
Perhaps I should have told you. I see now you might have understood.
Know you better than you think. Don't keep me waiting.
so that concludes this video, okay? Hope you learned a lot of philosophy, hope you learned something about The Witcher, hope you learned more about yourselves, and let me know if you want me to do different philosophers perhaps, or perhaps to apply this to Hearts of Stone or Blood and Wine, just to make things a little bit more interesting. Obviously, like, subscribe, all that stuff. I'm out.